Well, I think the characterization of San Francisco being an unsafe city, how I respond to that is some of it is justified by the statistics if you look at certain crime categories, but other areas it's not justified. So I think a lot of the unsafe city tag, I don't know if that's an appropriate characterization of this city. We have to balance these conversations with, everything is relative and everything is, has a context.
Chief Scott, take one.
I think people are saying they feel unsafe because of a couple of things. Number one is what they experienced. We do have crime in our city and we do have people being victimized. So if you are that person that's been victimized, once or repeatedly, you're probably going to have that perspective. The other thing that I want to point out is kind of what's going on in the realm of social media and the influence of that. If I am looking at the news, reading the newspaper, and I keep seeing these incidents happening in San Francisco, like the incident at one of our local, pharmacy drugstores where a guy rode in on his bicycle and helped himself to the merchandise and rode out. That definitely influences the way people see things. But that's one incident. And I think, again, I try to step back and take things into context. Ironically, what you don't see, you don't see, People are driven by what influences them. And in today's world, a lot of our influence comes from cell phones, social media, what's happening in the media. I want to be clear on what we're doing to address these issues about how people perceive or what they fear in terms of crime and what's happening. We know not all crime gets reported. So oftentimes, what we see on paper in terms of car break-ins or burglaries or even robberies may not be the total picture of what people are seeing, feeling, and experiencing. So we have to acknowledge that. So it's a very real thing. And I understand people's frustration. Look, I happen to have been victimized by having my house broken into both as a child and as an adult. And in the 4 times it happened, I never got anything back and nobody ever was arrested. So I know what that feels like. Like, I'm not gonna paint a picture that, every crime is gonna get solved when you report it. You wake up in the morning, your car has been broken into, and you wake up to a pile of glass and there's really no evidence. Report it, because then we know where things are happening and we deploy officers there. If you don't report it, it really does you and your community a disservice, because the illusion of things aren't happening is what gets reported officially. And then people get frustrated, right? Sometimes even when a person is arrested, prosecuted, it doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna spend any or much time in jail. And that is a source of frustration for a lot of people too. The DA and his team of assistant DAs, they prosecute crimes. Can they do better? Yeah, so can the police department. Now, the laws have changed also, and I think, I talk about this often publicly. Voters go and they vote, and we work toward the will of what voters want us to do. That's where the laws come from, legislation and votes, right? A combination. And when those things are changed by the will of the people, we are sworn to do that job. It wasn't so long ago that if you walked in a store and stole, $800 worth of property, that was a felony. Now that's a misdemeanor. And in this city, unless you have a warrant or unless there's a continuing offense or there's some compelling reason that you need to be detained, you don't even go to jail for a misdemeanor. You get cited and you get a court date. So, but that's what the voters voted for. You get victimized, you see the person led away in handcuffs, and a week later, that same person is in your community doing the same thing. Doesn't mean they didn't go through that whole process that I just described. But sometimes, the judges can only do what the law allows them to do. And it's frustrating for a lot of people. And I think people really should pay attention to those things and, react accordingly to what they want. Trust is it's a never over type of proposal. It's never over. One incident can blow everything you've done out of the water, but you gotta, put enough as we say, goodwill in the bank to try to have enough goodwill to overcome those incidents. Hopefully we build enough trust where people will report the crime. And if they report all crime, crime is going to go up, by the way, because it's reported. But I'll take that any day, because if people trust us enough to call us and say, my car got broken into, I want to report it, I hope you catch them, but at least you know, you have this information, do something with it. That's a victory.